Hi, everyone. So excited to have you here today. I'm Tina Fox, the CEO and founder of TERN Mentoring, and today marks our very first video podcast. I brought on a special guest because this is why I chose to start TERN Mentoring. I chose to start TERN Mentoring for the students. The students are this extension of our future. They are somebody that reminds me of my past. And in going back to my own alma mater, I had a chance to connect with many of them. And so I wanted to bring on a student. Today we have Jordan Black, who is a student. He's a senior at Virginia Tech, and he is graduating in 1 month. So we're getting him at the very tail end. He's also a participant as a mentee in TERN Mentoring. And so we wanted to have Jordan come on today just so that we could have a conversation about what mentorship's all about, his own experience, and maybe find out a little bit about where he's headed now that he's completed his post-secondary degree. So everybody, big warm welcome for Jordan Black at Virginia Tech. Hey, Jordan.
Hey, thank you so much. That was very nice of you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So tell me, you got 1 month left. What's this last month look like for you?
I wish I could have let you know a little bit sooner, but I actually have up until December. I was supposed to graduate in May, but I changed my major from business real estate over to business management, which is tacking on about 5 classes of in major courses that I haven't fulfilled yet. So I do have that six extra months, those extra months, but it's all right. I'm looking forward to one extra semester and closing it up.
Well, we never want to leave college. So the fact that you've added on a few extra months, that's what we call pivoting, and that's actually a great skill to learn. So glad you're figuring that out before you get out of school. So why'd you switch your major?
Oh yeah, so originally I was a college soccer player here, an athlete here, and when I first came in, um, I wanted to do business. I wanted my focus to be business, but I wasn't sure where. So a little bit of help from the academic advisor within the athletics department. He kind of guided me towards real estate, and I was like, this is something I'm interested in for sure. I had a little bit of background in it, and I soon realized for myself that I really didn't want to go to school for 4.5 years at this point just for real estate.
Mhm.
And I knew that business management was something that suited me more as a person. So once I had the chance to declare my major out of real estate and kind of figure that out for myself for the first, 2.5 years, 3 years here at school, that's when I decided I wanted to go to business management and kind of have a more of a broader view on what I can do and what I'm capable of moving forward out of college post grad. So
So I wanted to go back a second because you mentioned something very important about what brought you to Virginia Tech in the first place, and that was your love of soccer.
absolutely,
And so you played soccer in high school. You actually became part of the Virginia Tech soccer team. This is a D1 university.
yeah,
So you were playing soccer at a very high level, and we met under really cool circumstances because you were at home over the holidays with a job.
that's
And I
right.
thought maybe you could explain a little bit about how we met and what that conversation looked like when we first met, because you were in a little bit of a quandary at that point in time.
Absolutely, yes. So um, back at home, I work at a hair salon. It's called Statements the Salon, and I that was one of my first jobs ever, like real job that I had, and it definitely took me out of my comfort zone. But through working there, I've met a lot of great people like yourself, Miss Tina, and we had a lot of conversation throughout, my 4 years of college, of me just going back home, and I realized that you were the one person that would actually be invested in, what I was going through in life. And I was like, every single time she would come to the salon, I was a shampoo boy. So I was like, I want to shampoo her hair. I want to talk to her because we get some good conversations in. So that was just a little tangent, but yeah. So Miss Tina and I had a lot of conversation about deep decisions that I had to make in terms of my like college career and what I wanted to do with my life. And we I was on the fence because I knew I was going to enter the transfer portal, but there was a lot of factors with this after my junior season of playing soccer. Um, you know, leaving a great university where I'm at right now, and is it worth it where I would actually be getting more out of playing soccer for those 2 extra years somewhere else, who knows where, and is it worth, taking that chance for myself as well? So that is a conversation that we had over many, many different days. I'd say throughout the course of probably about 2 months. And ultimately, I decided to, go into the portal. I didn't like my options as much as um, I anticipated. But that's why you said pivoting. There's so many different ways of life, and there's so many different obstacles that you're going to be set in front of, and um, I think that there was no wrong decision ever that I could have made. And with the help of Miss Tina, building my confidence in certain aspects of just going for it, that's why I just was, like I said, confident in whatever happens, and that's why I ended up here ultimately. And I just wanted to continue and finish, my career here as a student. So.
Well, you did all the work. We just you were open to a conversation, and I was happy to have it with you. And besides, you did a phenomenal job in washing my hair. So there's that too. But way to give statements to the salon a shout out to
Oh yeah,
the owner Nikki Lee, founder owner. So we always love female founder owners. We got to give her a shout out too.
absolutely.
So you can look her up, Statements of the Salon in Woodbridge, Virginia. But in that conversation, it was really, the decision was always yours, the thought process was always yours. I was just happy to ask some questions of you. But I remember, I mean, you were close, right? You had already packed up 95% of your stuff,
Right.
heading out of Virginia Tech
Mhm.
that holiday season, and you were really on the fence as to whether you were going to go back or not. But
Mhm.
I think through all the questions, and like you said, no matter what decision you were going to make, you are Jordan Black, and you are going to make that work for you.
That's right.
And we just sort of went through a lot of the different things that you had already owned at Virginia Tech, as far as your friendships, as far as your coursework, even being a part of that team. But one of the things that came out of that conversation, if you can talk to this a little bit, had to do with your revelation that although soccer was what brought you to Virginia Tech, that you recognized your love of the sport. It had been a part of the fabric of who you were. And so, talk to me a little bit about that moment where you had to think that I am more than just soccer. Like soccer is a part of who I am, but it's not all of who I am. I remember you saying something to me about that. Can you elaborate?
Absolutely, yeah. So this takes me back because I've gone through a lot of growth since that time. But I would say since I was a little kid, honestly, I've always been involved in sports. Always doing something when it was getting out of school, a few hours, do some homework, going straight to soccer practice, and it was my schedule every day. And so that's all I knew. Growing up and getting through high school. Obviously, high school was a big part of where I was like, okay, I know that I'm capable of playing in college, at a collegiate level. So that's what I ran at, really. I kind of let the sport and the anticipation uh, uh, be the lead of my mindset and who I thought of myself as. So I would always, just training on my own and just trying to take those next steps up into getting to that collegiate level was like would really just consume my mind every single day. Um, I say that because when I did get to college, that the college athletics, you know, being a college athlete on its own, um, that was a big role. Each person was kind of each athlete, I guess you could say, was investment into the school in a way. So there was a lot of pressure because everybody was treated differently. There was, a lot of promises that were made that you kind of had to continue to chase. Um, and that played a very big role on who I was mentally, and it kind of consumed who I was mentally throughout the process because there was a lot of highs and lows, So um, that process, like you said, it was just a lot of different emotional roller coasters where I kind of lost sight of my true purpose and kind of allowed outside perspectives be the judge of who I was as a person. If that
Did
makes
you
sense.
ever consider that you would play soccer outside of college, that you would go pro or anything after school?
Absolutely, yes. I mean, playing in a collegiate at any collegiate level, you always want to go to the next level if that's an option. So while we're here, that's all of what anybody else is thinking. We all want to play and get on the field, first of all, but then obviously we want to spend enough time on the field where we're improving and so we can get scouted to go to the next level. It's just like high school, like you want to be the best in your club team and your high school team so you can get scouted. There's always that next level, what's the word I'm looking for? Next level chaser or
You have a goal that you want to
yeah,
achieve. Yeah.
yeah, goal or ambition. So that's always something that's in the back of all of our minds. Obviously, we want to win, but
Now, I was never
that's
a
what you want to.
collegiate athlete. That's just not who I am. I'm not somebody who excels in a sport. I love them. I love being a
Pretty quick.
fan, but I didn't have the coordination.
Okay.
That being said, I remember that there was a lot of support for athletes, and I'm assuming that that continues on today is the level of support that happens for the athletes. But talk to me a little bit about, you were saying there are these thoughts that you had about goals after college and going pro and everything. Like, is there somebody who's helping guide you through that? What happens to an athlete when they get to school and they have their coursework, they've got all of their practices, they've got to do games and all this stuff. You're busy, and so how does that work out as an athlete? I'm curious.
For sure. So it's a job. It's definitely a job. Everybody who is an athlete in college knows that because you're not just a student here. You're a student athlete, of course, but a lot of times I would mistake the student athlete in that order for the athlete student because my days were based around, okay, today I gotta bust my ass, excuse me, I gotta bust my butt to uh, do the best that I can in this training, and I'm gonna give every bit of effort because I want to get that that next spot. And then it was going to school,
Mm.
and that is kind of where um there was an imbalance for me because I would let my mind be consumed on what I would, what I was striving for. And of course, there were resources for sure. We did have a lot of counselors, and Virginia Tech does a great job with providing, that support if needed. But
Were
re
you using them?
that's what I was going to say next. Reaching out was the hardest part because you didn't want to feel like you were an inconvenience to somebody else, or you didn't want your coach or somebody else to know that you were kind of struggling mentally. So then they would kind of, you know, put you on the back burner because you didn't want to like, seem like you were struggling because you wanted to be the best overall athlete, student athlete, so that you could, get that foot into the door. But yeah, I would say honestly, reaching out and knowing who I could reach out to, where it would be a comfortable connection where I could truly sit down and talk to whenever I want comfortably, that was pretty difficult for sure.
So was there anybody that you chose to do that with?
Um, so we do have a psychologist here in the athletics department. His name is Gary, but he's a great guy. Don't get me wrong. Gary has helped me out with so many different things. Once I actually discovered his talent and his counseling.
Mhm.
But that's kind of about it. I would always resort back to just calling home, but and that is not necessarily a great depiction because of there's different things that I'm going through that they don't see at home, like friends and family. And it's hard to kind of explain and then also give them reassurance that yes, I am doing well. I am staying above water when in reality I'm like, dang, like I came here, I have all these people from back home that are like, you are like the top recruit from the area, big school, Virginia Tech, rah rah. And then you get there and you're like, oh shoot, like I am not near the best at all. Like this is a struggle. But that's where, you know, resources like yourself and people back at home where I can actually go home and talk to, that you guys came and help in so many different ways. So
So you've been through this now. You've come out the other side. I thought it was interesting. You kicked off by saying, "Oh gosh, you're bringing me back to something that I feel like is so long ago."
yeah,
But to me, it's still very, even though it's a couple years ago, to me it was still very real and it's very raw now because in that moment, I remember the struggle that you were going through, in your own mindset. It was almost like you were there amongst the trees and you couldn't see the forest. And it was just an opportunity for me to help give you a little air support in that. But now that you've gone through all of that and you've made your decisions, you seem very happy with your decisions. What would you say to future college athletes now that you have this wisdom behind you? It's not just knowledge, you now have the wisdom. So what wisdom would you pass on to those college athletes coming behind you?
yeah. So I would say the first thing that comes to mind when you ask me the question is find your happiness. And it's very broad when people say that, but like what is your purpose of going to said college to play said sport? Is it to prove back at home right or wrong? Is it to prove that you can do something for somebody else, or is it to actually bring you the joy of life? In doing whatever you're doing. So I say that because going to college on its own is a big task. There's a lot of responsibility. There's a lot of change, especially coming out of high school. That's one thing I realized, and I don't even think about it as not, enough as I should. But that change from moving away from home for the first time, really ever for a long period of time, and then having new responsibilities, like you're on your own, and especially for college athletes, that just puts it on another level, on another pedestal of responsibility. So with all the responsibility, I'm trying to say there's got to be a purpose and there's got to be joy in what you're doing every single day, because if you're just doing it because you feel you have to prove something right or wrong, or you feel that you have to uh, what I'm trying to say is if you feel that you're not gaining the joy out of it personally every single day, and it's not uplifting your spirits every single day, then just reconsider it, because there's so many other things in life that will bring you so much more joy than playing a college sport, because they don't
So
tell you a lot of different things about it. But
yeah, well, you say find your happiness, find your purpose. Which the question that I think a student audience would say is, or not even a student audience. I mean, I have adult friends, that have been out there in the workforce for 30 years, and they're saying, well, how do I find my purpose, Jordan? Like what did you discover about yourself in, your decision to stay at the university that recruited you for soccer, but move on more on the academic as opposed to the athletic? What was it that you decided was your purpose? What was your joy?
okay, yeah. So I realized I was more than an athlete. Like I said, all of my life and through high school and most of college, I was my purpose was to excel at a sport and then also get my grades and to also graduate. But then I realized, what happens when there's no soccer? What happens if I get injured? That's where I had to really like ask myself, is this what I want to do for the rest of my life? There's no way I can do this for the rest of my life. So through that thought process, I kind of had to reconstruct my purpose and who I was as a human. You know what I mean? So um, that's when I realized I am capable of so much more than just kind of keeping myself in this athletic bubble, you know? There was a lot of talent and there's a lot of opportunity for growth in different ways outside of just a sport.
So
And
what'd you learn about yourself once you started identifying with a new purpose? What'd you learn about yourself? What things did you start to enjoy?
oh, I started to play different sports. I started playing pickleball for a little bit, and I was like, all I really wanted to do is compete. That's all I really want to do. So like, once I stopped playing soccer in my junior year, after the whole portal situation, I decided to stay in, and I was like, I like pickleball. So I ran at the club pickleball team here after I think it was I want to I want to say the spring semester after uh, soccer season. Yeah. So last spring, about a year from now, I was like, I like pickleball. I know I'm pretty good at this. Why not just go at the tryouts and just try and see what I can do. If not, I'm just on like the second team or whatever, like the rec team. But I'm just having fun. That's all I care about is just having some fun and competing. And I ended up making the pickleball team. And this is like 6 months into like touching the pickleball paddle, and I was like, wow, like I can do other things. I can find joy in other ways. Like this is not my life, like soccer. So I
So you
that
you can you can dink with the best of them, huh? Is that one of the words for pickleball?
you can dig with the best. Exactly. Exactly. All it is just mindset and what you do with your energy. If you're just giving your energy into, this is what I took away really, is if you're giving your energy into someone or something, like example for a program that I'm not really getting the energy reciprocated, then
Mm.
it's just gonna be draining. You're just giving and it's not a cycle. It's not a cycle at all of positive energy. And I don't say that over my teammates. There's a lot of great guys that I've made connections with and have absolutely pushed me to another level that have helped me, become who I am today for sure. But in certain aspects of playing college athletics, there were definitely draining holes, I guess you could say, that were not really beneficial to my my personal growth, you know.
I think that's very well said, and the fact that you were able to identify that and move yourself into a new space without having to upend a whole lot of things is really great. So how is the relationship? You mentioned your other teammates. How's the relationship now that you've looked at yourself in a different way and you've moved on in a new area? How are those relationships? Is it awkward? People that may be like you thinking, oh, I'm kind of in the same boat as Jordan. Like talk to them about, well, this too shall pass. And when you get to the other side, this is what it's going to look like. So maybe give them a little bit of a preview there.
Absolutely, yeah. So let me backtrack a little bit. So freshman year, you're pretty much living with your teammates. You are living with your teammates because you're on the same schedule. Um, and that's where a lot of connections started to really grow and started to build up. And when I did stop playing soccer, I found myself still living with the same guys. So these are still my friends. It's not like I don't play soccer, I'm not your friend anymore. But
So they identify with you more than a soccer player. You're actually a human that has other aspects.
yeah, everybody, I mean, we're all going through the same thing. Like we're all competing when we hit the field. Yes, a light switches and mindset switches field, we're all brothers. You know what I mean? There's a lot of competitiveness on the field and, you know, crap talk, whatever you want to call it, but we're off the field. Our connection, our growth together throughout the 3, 4 years that we've been here is so real where we understand each other. So we're continuing to push each other. So this is the longest I've been on a team with somebody at one time or a group of guys in my class. So we understand our growth and we understand who we are as people on and off the field. Um, so that played a big role in kind of giving me comfort and reassurance that I still belong here. not as an athlete. Just waking up with these guys every day and just you know,
Have you gone
just
out to
doing life.
support? Have you gone out to support as a spectator?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I still want each and every one of them to do beyond what I could ever imagine for themselves. Like that's who I was as a teammate. I never took it and walked in it in a selfish way. I wanted us to win. So that's why when I stepped away, I was like, I still want them to do great. I just got to do what's right for me because I have to start looking at, life and not only trying to give. I have to, do what's right for me so that I can continue to take positive steps. So when I did stop playing, like you said, I was at every game I could be at, especially at home. Yelling all the time with my roommates' parents and just supporting them all the time because it brought me joy. That's what I like doing, and that's what I was used to doing, I guess you could say, subconsciously on the team because I didn't play a lot, but it brought me like energy, like knowing that I was, you know, that extra push behind them if they needed, just like, giving them some extra energy. So that's just second nature when I stopped playing for sure.
I'm sure they're so grateful for that energy because you've got great energy. So you see yourself ever coaching in the future?
Uh,
Even if it's like the little kids at some point in time?
I mean,
I bet a lot of high schoolers and little kids would look up to you and say, "Oh my gosh, I'm being coached by Jordan Black."
I mean, I've had like one private session um, client over the summer, and he was great. I had a great time with him, but I think I don't know. I've responded to stepping away from soccer a lot different than many people would think. I haven't played all semester to say the least.
Mm.
Over the summer, I played uh, um, on his co-ed team, and when I tell you, I I mean everybody handles it different. I'm walking away and I'm not so eager to go back into the sport right away, and I think that's because um I just needed a change. Like I said, this is all I've
You
done.
never felt burnout, did you? Did you feel burnout or you just needed a change?
It's not that I felt burnout. I don't think that's what it was. I think the environment burnt me out, but not the
Mm.
sport. Um, but
I think
yeah,
that happens. I think that happens a lot. I think that, talking to other parents, for instance, their kids were 10 years into a sport, through elementary, middle school, high school, and even before they had a chance to take it to college level, the students and the kids were already burnt. They were like, I've exhausted myself in this sport. The injury rate is high. So the fact that, you managed to get through, not be burned out by the sport, really enjoy yourself in I think that's not as often as you hear with a lot of people. So I think you beat some of the odds there.
thank you. I try my
Yeah.
best. Like I said, there's
Yeah.
always a balance between the two. So
All right, so let's talk about you, the academic, now. So
yeah,
we know Jordan Black, the athlete. How about Jordan Black, the academic? So I get to meet you. You're in management in the College of Business over there at Virginia Tech, and you're taking a concentration in real estate. And we start talking about an opportunity where I thought, hey, why don't you enter into the Turn Mentoring program and we will connect you with the mentor who can support you in
yeah.
some of your goals. So I guess the first thing is, you had been on campus at that point in time. You were a junior when we met, right?
I would say so. I think I was either going into my junior year or just back for break or something like that.
Yeah, like early in.
Early on.
So you are taking all this academic coursework, and I guess one of the things that I always talk to students about is, you're going to get your coursework, you're going to work with hopefully some student advisors, hopefully you get some good professors that are engaged with you. But a lot of times students, I call it the three Ps. They have their parents, their peers, and the professors, right? That's the sphere of influence when students are going through college. And so you
Oh,
had a little bit extra. You had your parents, peers, professors, and you had the college coaching staff, right? With your team. But tell me, how is mentorship different than the coursework that you are taking, on campus in your classes? How are they comparative? How are they different in your mind?
sure. Yeah. So that's a great question, actually. I would say the first thing that comes to mind when you ask me that is there are so many different ways of uh, making a conversation personable. Um, in class, we learn. Okay, let me backtrack a little bit as well. There are certain classes that I've taken
Hmm.
where the topic or concept of what we're learning gets brought up, and then we're kind of going through the unit. I'm like, I know exactly what this is all about. Like, I don't need to continue to learn deeper into this stuff because I've experienced it, like in an internship environment or just in real life environments. So I'm fortunate for that. Where a mentor is more valuable, in my opinion, is where that conversation, that lecture turns into a conversation, So it is going on tangents based on what I may be lacking as a, as a person or on a deeper level where I could be improving myself, in just different ways. So that's the main difference between, yes, a professor is great. They teach you a lot about, the overall thing. But when you have a mentor, they're talking about you. Their focus is you, and your focus is learning from them as well because of their experience. And then the coolest thing about it, I think, is how they tune their mindset. I'm sorry, not their mindset, but they tune their constructive criticism or guidance based on what you know and where they think you are and what you're showing to them. And all that just comes into like vulnerability. If you're vulnerable with your mentor, I'm lucky enough to I only experienced having one mentor, and he was the best mentor I feel like I possibly could have ever had, Tommy Chambers. And
Another good plug. Another good
another
plug. Yeah.
great, yeah. Oh my goodness. And the first one of the first meetings, I was getting home and texting my dad like, "You got to meet this guy. You got to meet this guy, Tommy Chambers. Like, he's a great guy." And what that came from is because he wanted to listen to me. You know what I mean? So he wanted to know where I'm coming from, and he didn't want me to sugarcoat anything. That's one of the first things he told me too. He's like, be for lack of better words, not verbatim. He told me, just be real, like just be yourself. I want to know the truth, like what you're really going through mentally, and like the struggles in certain environments that you feel like you may be lacking. And I'll tell you how to help you, tell you about how I've been through certain situations like this, but also I'll give you a little bit of extra advice in these areas and see how you can use them, and we'll be back and I want to hear your feedback. And in certain instances like that, that's where um, I just find so much joy really in like thinking about the mentorship and the connection that I've built up with Term Mentoring and Tommy Chambers and what I've gone through. So there's a huge difference. Huge
Well,
difference.
so what's interesting is you said, so, you had mentioned, well, I'm there, they are meeting you where you are. And at the same time, you're learning from them. But because I've talked to Tommy, I also know that he's learned just as much from you. And I would say that's the same for me, in our conversations, is that one of the greatest gifts in being a mentor is you do get to be real with someone. You do get to serve your younger self in a way where you're like, wow, this is pure potential sitting in front of me. And, somebody like Jordan's asking all of these really interesting questions, and he's coming from a different generation and he's thinking differently than me. And so it's making me think about how I need to be thoughtful in my response to Jordan. And so it is definitely a two-way street. It is definitely a two-way street. And I can tell you that Tommy enjoyed the mentorship process with you just as much as you've stated you have with him. So in what ways did you said that, vulnerability was one of those things. In what ways did mentorship help you grow in things like, I'll call them the three C's: confidence, communications, and connections? How
Uh,
did mentorship help you with those three C's?
Um, that's another great question, honestly. So, um, I'll start with confidence, honestly. Well, I really can't just start with confidence. I think confidence with communication go hand in hand, in my opinion. I have always had an issue with stuttering my words when I wanted to, get something out and let it flow. And that comes from kind of putting up a barrier mentally. Nobody else is thinking of this but me, where I am not allowing myself to really be free with my thoughts, just allowing myself to speak my mind and speak my truth. And Tommy taught me a lot about how confidence when you're in a room um, plays a huge factor in reflecting your um, the way you communicate with people and how you connect with people. So that's one thing I've taken away is that you know your confidence comes from within. You have to believe for yourself that you're capable, and having that mentor kind of just gave me that reassurance that look, this is a safe space. We're working on these things, and it's not like a lesson where he's teaching me how to speak. It's nothing like that. It's more so like just talking through deeper things and asking me deeper questions on where this may come from and how he relates to it and sharing how he's grown from it in certain aspects. And that goes with so many different things, not just communication. But
Awesome. So what about connections? I mean, has having a mentor, you only had one in the program, having one mentor, did that open up new doors for you as far as networking and connections? And if so, how?
absolutely, yeah. So, I mean, the wonderful team at Chambers Theory is that's the first thing that comes to mind. There's so many great people there that have I've connected with that have connected me outside of just what they do what we do in Chambers Theory, but there are also it's just a plethora of different people to meet when you increase your inner confidence, the ability to really shine your light and kind of take that step out the box where you want to have a conversation with somebody. And I think this ties really back into um, just being here. A lot of times I wouldn't start conversations with certain people. Um,
That
but I feel
surprises me because you've never seemed shy. I mean, you've always been very authentically curious to me.
yeah. I mean, there's certain times where I've seen a change in my personality where I'm willing to, talk a little bit deeper and then find out a little bit more about, my peers here and just kind of wanting to connect. You'd be surprised how many people are around us that want to have a conversation, and then you find so many different, you know, connections and similarities in life. I met this dude on the bus when I was going to class, and I was just asking him about like the bus routes, and we had a conversation. We kept talking, and now we are running together, preparing for a half marathon. I think this dude just lives across the street from me, a different apartment complex, and just something small like that has led us both to want to, take another step outside the box and grow together. And I had no idea who this guy was about,
So okay, when did smartphones hit your life?
smartphones.
Yeah.
Um, well, my life probably, I don't know,
When do
late
you remember picking one up?
Uh, I mean, I definitely used my parents' smartphones when I was younger. They didn't let me have one in middle school. I think it was like my eighth or ninth grade year. They're like, okay, you can finally have like an iPhone or something like that. But
Okay, so you had it throughout high school and certainly through college.
Oh, for sure.
The reason I ask is because what do you think was holding you back in communicating with people? And you read all these reports about and now school systems are actually banning cell phones and they're making people put them in, little lockers and little pouches and stuff so that the students can focus on class and focus on each other and focus on the teacher. So what do you think has been, one of the reasons? Again, you seem like a very approachable guy. You've never seemed to have an issue in chatting things up, at least with me. And I've seen you around other customers and stuff. So I'm like, no, this guy doesn't have any issue talking to people. So now hearing you kind of confess this, I'm wondering, well, what would hold you back from you're on a college campus with people that are doing the same thing as you, and you're a recognized athlete. So what would hold you back from talking to folks?
I mean, to tie it in with the phone and smartphones, social media is huge these days. Um, there's so many different ways that social media has kind of consumed the individual, and especially like 20-year-olds like us in college. Everybody's walking around with their phones. I don't know if you see people behind me, but like everybody that comes out has got their earbuds in or looking at their phone. So that's why I think when I mentioned it's harder to talk to people
Mm.
um, with low confidence, it's because you don't know how they're going to respond. You're like, okay, well, why are you talking to me? I thought the norm was that we just walk by each other. Nobody speaks to each other the entire day, going from class to class in passing. I see this person every day. I'm never going to say hello because we're both on our phone. But in reality, it's just this stereotype and norm that we've been put in, I think, because, you know, it's really sad, honestly. I think it would be so much better if like it was normal to have your phone away and have your earbuds out and just be present with, you know, like just being, and just
Do you find yourself taking your own advice in that? Are you more
oh, for sure.
engaged like visually and earbuds out and you're kind of aware of your surroundings?
Yeah, for sure. In a way, I mean, I on Tuesdays and Thursdays I have four back-to-back classes, so it can get a little overwhelming sometimes with two exams a day, and then I go and do a quiz in another class and take notes fast in another class,
Hmm.
um, and I'll use that time especially this semester. I use that time to, leave my earbuds in my bag, put my phone in my pocket. I don't want to text anybody back right now. I just want to walk 15 minutes across campus to my next class. And it just allows me to kind of just be present with myself and kind of just be back in the moment. Like there's a lot of things that are happening around us that we don't realize, and it's causing us to be stressed and kind of, you know, get overwhelmed with the way that life is going because we're allowing these things to just be in our head. The minute we get out of class, like blasting music in our ears, don't even have time to process and let our brains just relax a little bit. And that's something that I've tried to change a little bit, and I've seen a drastic results in it from just relaxing, just relax your brain and just be more present with people around you. I like people.
I like that you're being intentional and mindful about when you're using it and when you're not using it. That seems like that's a good balance to me. So you happen to have a mentor who is of a different generation than you.
For sure.
So how did that? I've always been of the belief that generation integration is not a bad thing, that there is something to be learned, this way and this way. And so what have you learned about yourself through your participation in the program with somebody who's not of your generation?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question. I would say honestly, there are a lot of things, and at first you caught me off guard when you told me that Tommy has told you that he's learned a lot from me because that's not necessarily what I think about first, but I mean it does make sense because times are changing. The way that people interact with each other um, in a business setting is so much different now than it has been. I'd say probably about 15 years ago. So it's really cool to like bounce questions off of each other and kind of in a way challenge each other to think a little bit deeper into the topic that we're on. There are a lot of times where um, I've, had a little more experience, I guess you could say, in a certain situation, and using Tommy's like past experiences has helped me. And kind of going back to the, what he's experiencing in his like standard way of life, and allowed
Can
me to
you
kind
I'm sorry, as you're saying that, I'm thinking, I feel like there's something you want to say, like you remember something. So is there a specific moment or conversation that you're like, wow, this is going to have lasting impact? Like, thank you. I'm taking this. I'm sure he gave you a ton,
of,
but maybe there was something in particular, like something, you guys went over one day, or you were just sitting around and just having coffee or whatever the case is. What is that thing for you?
um,
What will you remember from him?
well, the what I definitely can remember is one thing Tommy would do would be like in the mornings or just whenever we're kind of just like slow, the team is kind of just, getting into the motion of things. He'll bump into the room and then on the board, all right, you, three things that are motivating to you today, or three things you learned this past week that you want to share. And it just gets everybody back on their toes, you know? So that's something that my parents have kind of, you know, used with myself and my two older brothers, but like, just quick math problems when we were little young, like little kids in the car, like, all right, Jordan, what's this time, blah, blah, blah. And
What's the
it kind
airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow? Anybody who's my generation will know that, but we'll talk about that another time. But yeah, so they would tease you about math questions and stuff. So Tommy
of
did like a pattern interrupt, and I should tell the audience that you started out in a mentorship relationship with your mentor, but because of the relationship that you built and because of who you were offered an internship,
yes,
and
yes,
you became an intern for his company. So that is not something we promise, but it is something that happens, because the student and the mentor, we just put together the collision space for the
right,
relationship to take place, and we provide the guide work for it, and we provide the time frame in which it happens. But it really is amazing how people like you can end up with additional opportunities. So you ended up in this internship, and what he did that morning, I guess it sounds like, is, I call it a pattern interrupt, right? It's something where everybody's kind of coming in, they haven't even finished their first coffee yet, but he's starting to, throw out the questions to get people thinking and on their toes.
yeah,
And so the
absolutely.
the pattern interrupt was something that you'll always remember because you're like, oh, I got to be on my toes.
Yes, for sure. Because you never know when he's gonna pop in and you're not on your P's and Q's completely, 100%. You might be that 95, and you're like, this is a reminder that someone is always watching. And it's not even just like micromanaging. I don't mean to create this picture of Tommy like, oh, checking in and he's trying to catch anybody doing something wrong. Never, never that feeling. But I'm just saying in terms of, you want to always do your best for yourself, but for the people around you and for what you're doing your best for. There's always a purpose, an underlying purpose for everything. So um, that's definitely something that I took away just from being in the environment of Chambers theory. So
That's
yeah,
great. You talked about, you never know when somebody's looking.
yeah,
And so I'll share my one little story because you made me think about it. It was a mic drop moment for me in my life, and this woman doesn't even know that she was a momentary mentor for me. Her name is Patricia Southall. For anybody who wants to look her up, she's pretty famous nowadays in her own right. But she happened to be a student on my campus, and she was a couple years ahead of me, and we were both in the same college. And I just kept noticing it was in the 90s, so we were in grunge. And for those who don't know grunge is like two sizes too big, definitely not ironed, and just hanging off you. And there's no color about it either. We had gone away from like 80s neon, and now we were like void of color. So anyway, so this was my outfit and everybody else's outfit walking around this campus, and I was on a mountain campus. And I remember I kept seeing this woman who was dressed impeccably and she wore kitten heels. And so kitten heels are like little heels, right? But we're on a mountain campus. So nobody's wearing kitten heels on a mountain campus. But anyways, I just kept looking at her. And one day I finally, just like you with the guy that you met on the bus, this week or the other week, I mustered up the courage to go up and talk to her. And I was just curious about, like, who are you? Why are you always so dressed up? Are you getting ready for interviews that I don't know about? Like, what's happening here? Are you a new
Yeah.
professor in the college and maybe I'll get your class? And she just looked at me and she said, "No, I'm a student just like you." And I said, "Oh, well, how come you're always dressed like you're ready for an interview and those heels don't look very comfortable?" And she said, "Well, the way I see it, you never know when opportunity is going to rise to meet you. And I just want to be prepared for it when it comes." And my mouth was on the floor because I was just like, the words of wisdom. I remember rushing back to my dorm room and basically giving away all my clothes and finding the best outfits I could find because I was like, I want to be ready for opportunity too.
It seemed like she had no hesitation with that one at all. She was confident with it. She wasn't putting on an act at all, you know.
Well, she went on to be Miss Virginia.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
and she's a public speaker. She's yeah, so she was blessed from the minute she walked this earth. She owned herself from the second that she decided to come on this planet. And yeah, and I was lucky enough to be somebody who asked a question one day, and I'll never forget that. So kind of like with you and Tommy, we've got these moments in life.
Oh yeah, for sure. For
We've got
sure.
these moments in life. So, what would you share with students? You had a great experience. That's why I wanted to chat with you today. You're moving on to bigger and better things. But what would you share with students who are curious about mentorship? Right now on college campuses, it's a little bit of a chaos and confusion. There's a lot of budget cuts that are going on. Higher education is always top line of news, and it just seems like there's a lot of people that are scrambling to really support the students in that collegiate to career transition, and that's where we at Turn Mentoring want to make that difference. We want to be the air support with our program and our ability to connect the alumni back with the students. But a lot of students are not aware of mentorship. They don't take part in it. They're nervous. They're like, "What do you mean? I got to talk to a stranger? What are we going to talk about?" So what would you tell these students about mentorship?
Yeah, honestly, the first thing that comes to mind is it's a no-brainer, really. It's if you find someone whose purpose is to help you and to, kind of guide you through where you are in life and answer your questions based on their experience, their real experience, it's a no-brainer, Like there's so much that you can take away from just allowing yourself just to be relaxed and I keep saying this, but honestly vulnerable. That's the only way you can grow is if you just get outside of your shell. There's no way that you're going to grow if you're getting your advice off of Instagram and allowing Instagram or TikTok to, be the true teacher of what you are looking for. Because that's not real. They're not preaching and they're not teaching um, certain things based on what you've experienced and where you are in life right now. So I'd say for students, um, you know, there's this ties back to the social media point we were making and how it's kind of just, consuming the way that this generation is thinking and kind of where we're getting our information from. Um, but with mentors and like through mentorship, you build a connection. And not only are you building a connection, but you're building a relationship, a personal relationship with the person in your mentor. They're giving you real advice. Um, you're learning how to communicate and how to step outside the box. I keep saying that, but it's really the truth. Like, you're getting outside of you're taking that step outside of where you used to be. You're growing as a person. And you don't get that when you aren't participating in mentorship. So I've only found myself eager to want more mentorship throughout my entire semester. I did it with TERN mentoring this past summer, but there's so many different things that I've learned and that I've taken from it, but it's hard sometimes when you don't have that, that schedule where you're meeting again and you can talk through certain things that you didn't realize that you might be struggling with. So I'm honestly super excited to go back and to be home for the summer, and just ask advice from people that I trust and from people that are, willing and wanting to help me. Um, like for example, like Tommy Chambers. There's so many different questions I can ask him throughout the day, and I can get a real answer from him about it. And obviously, I can give him a call, but you know, just having that schedule at least once a week, that is something I really look forward to. So, like I said, it's really a no brainer, and wanting to grow. If you're wanting to, take that extra step to uh, to grow as a person
So
in your
you
career.
you went through a program that was organized, right? So mentorship can be, like you said, it can be super unstructured, where if you've got the ability to go out and talk to people, you might want to find somebody on your own and just have a conversation with them, and you can learn something in that conversation. We can always learn something in a conversation if we're really thoughtful about it. But what you enjoyed was that there was a level of structure. And so with Turn mentoring, for those of you that don't know Turn, we provide a level of structure, but we also provide a finite period of time, and we have some good guided discussions in that. And so, had you gone through, you hadn't gone through anything like that before, I'm assuming.
No, I actually have not. No.
So can you talk to, students who are, if they were to look to get into Turn mentoring in one of their classes, um, what that structure was like? Like, was it easy? Was it overwhelming? What was that like for you? As far as, this is my first mentorship, and it's in a structured, finite kind of program.
Right, right, right. So I would say my first meeting, I didn't know what to expect. There were multiple meetings down the line, but I just knew that the first meeting was on, a Monday, for example, or Monday or Tuesday. And the first step to that meeting was finding the right time between the both of us to actually sit down and have that solid hour for each other to, be focused on each other. Um, and I think that's a great first step, and kind of, wanting to, uh, you know, be on the same page as someone else in terms of like scheduling. You have to be on the same page. So that was the first thing that came to mind when I scheduled my first meeting. But then throughout time and throughout the weeks and the months, there were certain times where either myself or Tommy was were a few minutes late, to the meeting, and um, if it were ever me, Tommy, I would tell Tommy, look, I'm so sorry. I'd be very apologetic and tell him like I'm running a little bit behind, like this, that, and the other, and then he'd be like, it's okay, I understand, but then he would say one time he might be running a little late because of a meeting that he had prior.
Mhm.
Um, I would tell him, no, no, it's totally fine, no worries at all. And he's like, I don't want you to keep telling me that, because if I am late again, that just shows that I'm putting myself on a pedestal where I can be late and it's fine, but if you're late, you see how bad you feel already, and I haven't even, put that energy on you. I don't make you feel bad about being a little bit late to a meeting. And it's something so small,
Mm.
but it's something that I took away where I was like, that is true. We should hold each other accountable, because
Mhm.
that's the only way that both of us are going to grow. Because ultimately, we are learning every time that we, have a conversation. But my purpose was to gain insight from him. His purpose was to, give more to me, that he could, but he would only know that if he knew who I was as a person. So, building that trust equity, I think that was the biggest thing, is that we could both hold each other accountable, and that could continue to grow over time. Um, and that's where, the structure of scheduling kind of wrapped everything together because we wanted, you wanted to have something to look forward to and to, add something onto your schedule where, it's just a more, what was the word I'm looking for? It's something to, you know, kind of build on
Yeah.
in a sense. I don't know how to put that in better terms, but
No, I
uh,
think you do. I think that sums it up real nice. I want to touch on one more thing, and then I just want to close it out with some of your final thoughts because you've been so great today, kind of going everything from your freshman year and the athletic aspect, and moving into the academic aspect, and now moving on to the final semester of your time at Virginia Tech. So you mentioned vulnerability, and I want to touch in on that because you put in so much of your time and effort into the mentorship relationship. And I think you got out as much as you put in. And that's obvious in the way that you've shared with me over the times that we've had a conversation. But can you talk a little bit about that vulnerability aspect? Because you seem to be in touch with who you are. You've gone through a lot of growth yourself. Some folks may look at that and say, vulnerability, like, what is that mamsy pamsy? Like, I'm not going to share, certain aspects of myself. But what would you like to say about this concept of vulnerability in mentorship as far as what that yields for you in conversations and in learning? So what would you tell people about the whole vulnerability and not just students, but also for mentors, because it sounds like your mentor was as equally as vulnerable towards you as you were towards him. So tell me what that meant to you. What is this whole concept of vulnerability in mentorship?
yeah. So um, it's you can kind of relate mentorship to counseling in a way. Counseling, you're kind of working to uh, like um, counseling, you're kind of working to heal in a way, and mentoring, you're kind of working to grow. But the change is the common denominator in that. So like you want in order for there to be change, you have to open up a little bit about who you are right now. So I don't mean when I say vulnerability, I don't mean that in a sense of like telling each other my deepest secrets or like my not even my deepest struggles in life, but just being like having the willingness to want to say more and want to um just chip away at sure, I'll share this personal story about where this comes from. I think um I think
As to
that
how you make your decisions and
yes, exactly. That's how I make my decisions, communication. I told you a little bit about my stuttering issue, I guess you could say, and kind of just being shy in conversation, not confident in conversation. Um, but yeah, vulnerability, it opens up doors between you guys to, you know, want to uh, want to talk about deeper things so that you can actually take those steps to growth because there's no growth in the comfort zone. So I think I keep tying back growth and vulnerability, but in order to take that next step, that's truly what it is. So
yeah, I love it. I love it. All right. So is there anything else that you would like to share? Because I only have one other closing question and then I have a couple things I'm going to say. But is anything else that you want to share in our time together today? Because I really appreciate you coming on and being our very first video podcast. You've been amazing.
I appreciate it. And honestly, I've said a lot. I know I've been rambling a little bit, but I honestly just want to say mention how appreciative I am of this opportunity because this is something that this is the first time I've ever been on a podcast. I've never done something like this. I was a little nervous, but this is something that I kind of stepped outside the comfort zone with, and that is just nothing compared to all the things that you've helped me to continue to do in my years in college and just being able to grow as a person. So this is something I'm looking forward to all the time and just new opportunities. like this are things that I couldn't thank you enough for. So I appreciate it.
Well, I
Seriously.
appreciate it too. So we're going to end with a little speed round because
All right.
we want to know some things about the people that we bring on here. So I'm going to make this up as I go along, all right? But so favorite book.
Favorite book? This one right here. I'm reading
Oh, you have it. Okay.
it. Oh my goodness. How to Stay Sane in an Insane World. This is a great book right here.
You know what? You've actually shared that book. So that is absolutely, he is telling the truth. And the fact that you're carrying it around says a lot about that book. So you want to give it one more plug? What is it again?
Stay Sane, How to Stay Sane in an Insane World by Greg Harden.
By Greg Harden. Okay. Is that somebody else's favorite book in your family?
Oh yeah, my dad
Okay.
gave me this
Yeah,
book.
I was going to say, I think I remember hearing that before.
Yeah, he
All
was
right.
like,
So, favorite kind of food?
favorite kind of food, meats. I like steak and rice.
What
Or
professor?
okay, kind of food, Mexican food.
Mexican food. Okay. What professor would you like to give a shout out to?
Oh my goodness. I would probably say uh, Professor. I'm having a hard time with names right now, but um, I'm gonna have to pass on that one.
Okay. All right. What about favorite place at Virginia Tech?
Favorite place at Virginia Tech? Um, Probably right now the pickleball courts.
The pickleball court. You guys have your own pickleball courts?
Yeah, they made half the tennis courts pickleball courts, and it's a hot commodity right now because it is actually getting a little warmer. But um, I mean, obviously, my second answer would definitely be the drill field. It's just beautiful there.
The
It's
drill
just
field. All right. All right. I got to bring my kids down for a tour soon, so I'll make sure that we head over there. And the most important question, last question is, do you plan on becoming a mentor after you graduate from college?
yes, yes.
Awesome. I love
Never been
hearing.
asked that question, but yes, absolutely. I would love to for sure.
Okay. You've already got a lot of wisdom in you, Jordan Black. Just a quick plug for you. So that wraps this session. Just listen, if you're in the audience and you're in a hiring position, Jordan Black is going to be on the market, ready for a job come end of December. So you can get in early and start interviewing him. Maybe you can even mentor him between now and the end of his time at Virginia Tech. And I have a feeling you are going to have many offers, my friend. You've done an extraordinary job with your career as a student in higher education, and the future is very bright for you. So I wish you the best and wild success in everything you do. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. Again, Tina Fox, the CEO and founder of TERN Mentoring, will be bringing you a video podcast once every month. If you've got something of interest that you want us to talk about, let us know, and we'll see if we can't get that on the air. So, Jordan, it's been great chatting with you, and I hope you have a great rest of your time at Virginia Tech.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. I appreciate it so much.
All right, I'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Thanks for joining us on TERN Talks, the TERN Mentoring Podcast. Want to spark change through mentorship? All of our guest information is in the description below, but be sure to like, subscribe, and share, and tap the bell so you never miss a moment to grow, give, and connect with TERN Mentoring. Let's rise together.